Okay guys, this is part 2 of my bread baking, and I'm a very messy cook. Okay, so I just, in the first part, I ended with you guys seeing, I don't know what you guys can see, I don't need to be able to just see me. Okay, I ended with showing you guys what the dough looks like after putting in 4 cups of flour, okay? It started to look doughy, all right? Now that I've let it mix a little bit, this is what it looks like. That same 4 cups of flour. So, kind of looks like cake batter. Yeah, kind of like banana bread batter. Kind of thicker than a regular, just a little bit thicker than a regular cake batter, but kind of like a sweet bread batter. Not batter, batter. Alright, so, alright, so now I'm going to start adding in, slow this puppy down, I'm going to start adding my flour in 1 tablespoon at a time, and wipe this out because it's stuck. Had yeast and stuff in it. Alright, so I'm going to start adding my flour in 1 tablespoon at a time. And okay, so that's 2 tablespoons, and I'm doing heaping tablespoons. Here's 3. Let's just call it 4 for the sake of keeping everything even. So now we have 4 cups and 4 tablespoons, and we need to let that mix a little bit. So basically what I think that we're doing is, in my experience of doing this, is that I am working the gluten out of the wheat and the natural gluten that's already in there. And by adding the flour slowly, and you're starting to stretch those fibers, it'll actually start to look sticky and stretchy. Let me see if I can show you. See how it's kind of like it looks stretchy and sticky? And that's from adding the flour slowly and, you know, mixing it vigorously. So, alright, now this is starting to look like I can add a little bit more flour. So I'm going to add 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got another 4 tablespoons of flour in there. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Alright, so slow it back down, and I'm going to start adding flour again. options that you can do with this dough is you could use molasses, which would make it like a real dark, kind of like an Outback Steakhouse kind of sweet. And I would add to the recipe that you have now, I would add a 1/4 cup of molasses, even though you've already added the honey, but I would add the molasses to it, and it would make it a really nice, sweet, just real delicate dough for like a dinner roll type thing. And you can also add some quick oats to it. Or you could take your regular oats and run them through your blender just a couple of pulses to kind of break them up a little bit, and you could stick that in there as well to add texture. You can put sunflower seeds, you can put nuts. And I'm actually going to do a recipe of my version of health nut bread. If you're on the West Coast, it's Ora wheat. If you're on the East Coast, it's Arnold's bread. And they have one called Health Nut. And it's the only store-bought bread that I really, really, really like. But I have to tell you, I haven't bought a loaf of bread in probably at least 6 months. And the only reason we bought it then was because I was down with my back and I couldn't make any bread, and my husband needed some bread for his lunches, so he just was being very sweet and went and got a loaf of bread so I wouldn't have to make bread. So, alright, so this isn't quite there yet. I think we're going to need another 4 tablespoons here. 1, 3, 4. Okay, so I think that's 16 total tablespoons that I've added so far. I've never measured this before. I just do it by what it looks like. And you see that it's starting to try to form a ball. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Alright, see how it's starting to get kind of stretchy looking, like elastic? That's the gluten developing in the dough. So I'm gonna put another 4 tablespoons in here. 1, 2, maybe not. So that's 18 total. See how the dough ball is, or the dough hook is starting to grab it into a ball? Now I'm going to speed that up a little bit. Now if you were doing this without a mixer, after about 12 tablespoons of trying to mix it, of the flour in a bowl, your arm would be going crazy. So at that point, then you'd want to get one of these. Trying to pull this thing out. I should have brought it out before I started so you could see what it was. This is a dough scraper. And then what you do is you'd flour your surface, because there's no way you could try to mix this with a spoon. It would just kill your arm. And you'll just put it on a floured surface and use that scraper to scrape it off and fold it over, and you'll use the scraper to help you knead it. And you want your dough to stay sticky. You don't want your dough to be dry and not stick to your hands. You want it to be sticky. And I'm going to show you what it's going to look like here in a bit. So I'm going to put 2 more. I'm comfortable putting in 2 more tablespoons in here because it's not quite a ball yet. So it's getting there.